before the video, let me say CalVPN. Everything is going very smoothly. I said the beta would be out this week for Windows. It's very close. It's very close. So next week. Let me give you a little sneak peek because I've got it right here. So check this out, guys. I think you can see that. Look how snazzy that looks. Look at all these locations. So if you tried it before and it was a bit slow, your speeds, they'll be way better now. Just basically choose somewhere close to you and you'll have better speeds. Like I've made some changes, and for me personally, it's like 4 times faster. So basically when you sign up for the beta next week, you'll get like a free month. And then after that, you can decide if you want to, you know, support my YouTube channel through this. When do we watch Kurzgesagt? Right now, my friend. All right, 7:20. Let's see if we get lag.
The Earth is a gigantic ball of semi-molten rock, heart of iron as hot.
Kurzgesagt has their own producers for music. Yeah. So before we start, so Kurzgesagt is amazing because they actually don't rule with an iron fist on YouTube. They basically allow you to watch their videos and their music, and they don't actually have like it in the content ID system. So you don't have to worry about copyright with Kurzgesagt. Like if you needed another reason to love Kurzgesagt, there you go.
Hot as the surface of the sun. Titanic amounts of heat left over from its birth, and the...
Before we continue, can everyone hear the video? I just want to double check that is the case.
Radioactive decay.
Yes, I believe you can, but I need to turn it down for you guys.
Of trillions of tons of radioactive elements find no escape but up. Currents of rock spanning thousands of kilometers carry this energy to the surface. Earth's crust is the only thing in their way. It feels solid to us, but it's only a fragile barrier, an apple skin around a flaming behemoth. True apocalypses can break through and unleash eruptions tens of times more powerful than all of our nuclear weapons combined, subjecting the climate to centuries worth of change in a single year, while drowning continents in toxic ash and gases. Supervolcanoes. How big can they get? And will they put an end to humanity?
We're gonna find out.
There are many types.
Could be louder though. What do you want louder, my friend? Do you want Kurzgesagt louder or me louder?
Of volcanoes, from towering mountains to lava domes, but they have 2 main sources. The first is at the boundaries between...
Can you see that? That's Australia down in the bottom right. We're right in the middle of a plate. So that means we don't get much volcanic activity. Heaven on earth. And you can see right next to us, our neighbors, New Zealand. They chose a bad place to park, right on a line. And so that means they get terrible earthquakes, terrible volcanic activity. They actually have a supervolcano down there on the North Island. And they have a city that's just living inside a supervolcano. I'm not even kidding. If you think that doesn't sound real, we'll talk about that soon.
Tectonic plates, the pieces of the crust.
Yeah, we'll definitely come up with some merch and things like that for sure. Australia doesn't
that cover
exist.
the Earth like a giant jigsaw.
Get out of here, man. I'll ban you. I'm kidding.
Puzzle. There are 7 major tectonic plates and dozens of smaller ones, drifting against each other at up to 15 centimeters per year. This sounds slow, but on geological timescales, it is a titanic struggle over who gets to stay on the surface.
So if you're confused by like why continents or just the crust can drift around on Earth's surface, it is because all of the crust is literally sitting on like this superheated solid, pretty much a liquid, right? The mantle. It's basically a liquid. And that's what results in it all moving. And not only that, it results in something called isostasy, which is like the buoyancy of the crust. And this is why we have like mountain ranges. It's why we have ocean. It results in something called isostasy, which is like the buoyancy of the crust. And this is why we have like mountain ranges. It's why we have oceans. The oceans, right? At the bottom of the ocean, the material there is actually heavier than the material on the top of continents. And all of that material has come out of volcanoes. So volcanoes are very important for the, Earth's history. But at the bottom of oceans, you generally have basalt, which is heavier than granite, which is generally on land. And that's what causes this isostasy change. So it's just interesting stuff. I've always loved geography, geology. Can't bloody talk. Please, it doesn't exist. It's just upside down. You know the good thing about living in Australia, man? We don't actually have to launch rockets. We can just like let them go and they just fall into space. Jesus, my spelling. Floats. The crust floats? Yeah, it does float, man. Literally. Buoyancy.
The winning plate crumples into a new mountain range, while the loser
But there's more to it than just that. We'll explain.
is shoved underneath into an ocean of hot rock at 1,300 degrees Celsius, the asthenosphere. The temperature here is enough to melt rock into a liquid, but the insane pressures of all that mass keep it a superheated solid. Tectonic plates are usually in contact with water for thousands of years and absorb some of it. When they're submerged into the hot underworld, this water triggers chemical transformations that allow tiny portions to melt into magma. Liquid magma is less dense than solid rock, so it rises to the surface in furious bubbles that accumulate in sponge-like reservoirs right under the crust. If enough magma accumulates, it becomes powerful enough to pierce through the crust, which we experience as volcanoes.
So if that was confusing, because I think Kazak usually gives amazingly simple summaries of how things work, but I think he could have done a little bit better there. And basically, just to summarize why volcanoes are explosive is basically because there's water in magma, right? So when magma rises up from the mantle, basically there's a lot of pressure. That creates a lot of pressure, and that pressure basically causes the water in the magma to turn into vapor, right? Now you imagine vapor, like air, essentially, water vapor in the ground. The pressure will be insane, okay? And so that pressure is coming up, and that is why volcanoes are explosive, and they just explode when that vapor, reaches the surface and the water turns into vapor. That's what's going on there. Density too. Yep, density always matters. Always matters. And in terms of the isostasy stuff I was telling you, 100%. That is the other major factor for why the crust is the crust and the mantle is the mantle. I have to go to sleep. Oh, man. Well, you have a good sleep, my friend. Tomorrow's my B-day. Wow. Happy birthday, Diamond God. Seeing you upload really makes my day. You make my day. Happy B-day to Diamond God.
This happens under the winning plate like a revenge attack by the loser before it's erased forever. The second main source of volcanoes are thought to be mantle plumes. These are columns of abnormally hot rock that rise all the way from the planet's core mantle boundary to the surface. Much less is known about them, but in a way, it's as if the Earth's mantle has weather patterns and mantle plumes are a little like hot air rising to form storm clouds.
These mantle plumes he's talking about are so mysterious. We've found some like huge ones underneath like Africa and Australia, I believe. Two massive ones. We don't really understand them. We know they've been there for a long time, but they're kind of like these massive pockets of just different stuff. And who knows, what they could cause, because they're really mysterious still. But I thought I'd just let you know there's these huge pockets on the ground that we don't really know what's going on.
That rise all the way from the planet's core mantle boundary to the surface. Much less is known about them, but in a way, it's as if the Earth's mantle has weather patterns and mantle plumes are a little like hot air rising to form storm clouds. Storms hundreds of millions of years old, made of rock circulating at a rate of a few millimeters per month. They don't care about the motion of tectonic plates, so they can break the crust to create volcanoes in the middle of nowhere that stubbornly stay active as the crust shifts around them. The volcanic boom meter. Scientists love to put big booms on a scale and came up with a logarithmic scale that measures the volume ejected during an eruption. The Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VEI.
Lava surfing. That does not sound like a good idea, my friend.
Simply put, it starts really small and gets very big very quickly. A VEI2 eruption would fill 400 full Olympic swimming pools with lava. We have around 10 of these per year. At VEI3, we already see devastating effects, like the eruption of the Semeru volcano in 2021 that destroyed thousands of homes in Indonesia. At VEI5, we see catastrophic amounts of materials, cubic kilometers of debris, equivalent to an entire lake of molten rock blasted into the air. Like the 2022 Honga Tonga Honga Hapai eruption that sent a
Honga Tonga what? What is that for a name? But this reminds me, in the stream yesterday, someone mentioned Finland for some reason in the chat, and I was like, and it reminded me of that big volcano that I thought was in Finland, but it's actually in Iceland, and it has the most ridiculous name, like Eyjafjallajökull, and it's like 20 letters long. So let's check out this girl saying I believe it's like Eyjafjallajökull. I'm sure I don't pronounce it anywhere near correctly, but okay, so what are we doing here?
It's like this. Eyjafjallajökull. Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull.
I hope that helps. See you around.
I love the accent. If you didn't know, I actually found out I'm kind of I have some Norwegian ancestry, so I'm technically a Viking, my friends.
The shockwave around the globe many times and created ocean-wide tsunamis. At a VEI of 6, an eruption can change the world. In 1883, the Indonesian island volcano Krakatoa erupted nearly continuously over the course of 5 months. One of those eruptions blew it apart, producing the loudest sound recorded in history. 10 trillion times louder than a rocket
It's the best visual.
taking off, heard halfway around the world. 30-meter-high tsunamis swept away nearby populations, and so much gas and ash were released that global temperatures cooled by nearly 0.5 degrees Celsius. Red, dusty sunsets followed for many years.
You guys ever played Doom? The Doom soundtrack? Like, that is totally the inspiration. There's Viking physics. I like that. Wonder what Odin thinks about that. Odin's son. Dylan Odin's son. That is my new name, guys.
At VEI
Dance Odinson.
7, we get supercolossal eruptions, millennium-defining events that human civilization has only encountered a handful of times.
Super Colossal by Joe Satriani. Great song.
Mount Tambora was a 4,300-meter high mountain until it exploded in 1815 and released 400 times more energy than the Tsar Bomba. 140.
So if you didn't know, the Tsar Bomba is the largest nuclear weapon we've ever exploded in history, and of course, I'll give you one guess who detonated it. It was the Russians. And the plane that dropped it, it actually almost destroyed itself. But yeah, we haven't used anything on that sort of scale for a long time.
40 billion tons of ash and dust were shot halfway to space before smothering the world's skies, turning them a sickly yellow. There was no summer the following year, crops died, and over 100,000 people perished. This is the dreadful potential of volcanic eruptions, with famines across the other side of the world and even centuries-long cold periods being attributed to them. Okay, but what's a supervolcano? The term supervolcano is a media invention and not a scientific term. The main issue with them is that not
Yeah, Nick, we can do that.
every eruption from a supervolcano is a super eruption. What makes supervolcanoes special is that they've been waiting to erupt for hundreds of thousands of years. Pressure builds up in colossal magma reservoirs several kilometers deep until it becomes strong enough to lift the rock above it by several meters.
Yeah, we're going to debate people for sure. And we're going to watch other people's like reactions and just grill them for being wrong.
Rocks crack under the pressure until they finally give way, and billions of
In an optimistic way.
tons of gas and ash blast out at supersonic speed. An insane explosion of at least 1,000 cubic kilometers that impacts every corner of the globe. And yet, that is only a small portion of the magma reservoir. Super eruptions are like a boiling pot of water popping its lid off and spilling a bit off the top. Afterwards, the ground collapses into the void left behind, forming a hole called a caldera. Under this caldera, pressure starts building again until the volcano gathers enough energy for another super eruption. But this could take hundreds of thousands of years. It's estimated that one of the few volcanoes capable of super eruptions on Earth could cause a catastrophic eruption every 17,000 years on average. That would make them far more frequent than comparable asteroid impacts.
So as I said yesterday, that's not that true, because early in Earth's history, there was a time called early bombardment where there were dino killing asteroid level impacts happening every 15,000 years. But luckily we don't, live in that time anymore. And why that was the case has to do with the early solar system, and there was lots of debris around at those times. There's lots of theories for why that was the case, but it was. You can look, at craters on Earth and on the moon. You can date them. Obviously, you can't date the moon's craters very well. You need some moon rocks. But community post. Yeah, we'll do that. And so yeah.
That would make them far more frequent than comparable asteroid impacts. The most recent super eruption is the Oronui eruption 26,500 years ago in New Zealand. With the force of dozens of billions of tons of TNT, a Mount Everest-sized pile of explosives, a huge portion of the landscape was scooped out and
look at that visual. It's beautiful.
Thrown into the atmosphere. It left behind a caldera spanning 20 kilometers, and it caused the entire southern hemisphere to undergo a period of abrupt cooling. Though among super eruptions, it's a mere firework.
So we talked about this yesterday, Lake Taupo. There is a town living in a supervolcano in New Zealand. This thing is due to go off, right? And there's just like a city, like a town living in it. Because why not, I guess? YOLO? And not only that, they just raised the alert level to level 1 for this volcano, which is a supervolcano, and it's due to erupt. Level 1, and there's only 5 levels. And if you guys caught that White Island eruption, which was really sad because people died, it was at alert level 1 when it erupted. Yeah, so that's fun. And, you know, there's all that footage of it. I don't want to play that footage. It's actually horrific. I was in New Zealand at the time when this went off. I was in Dunedin at University of Otago to live there. Yeah, don't live there, bro. It's not worth it. Just don't live in New Zealand, period. Like, they're also due for a huge earthquake. Like, a massive earthquake. We'll talk about that another time, but let's get back to this video.
The lake
Lesson, don't live in New Zealand.
October eruption of 74,000 years ago was a much more significant turning point in history. It released a gargantuan 5,300 cubic kilometers of material, enough to blanket parts of South Asia in 15 centimeters of ash and trigger a rapid 4 degrees Celsius drop in global temperatures. It's possible that the volcanic winter lasted 10 years, followed by worldwide droughts for centuries. Earth's climate might have not recovered for 1,000 years. The largest volcanic events we know of were not really huge explosions, but floods of millions of cubic kilometers of lava. The grand finale were the Siberian traps around 250 million years ago, a continuous release of lava for 2 million years. They raised the ocean temperatures to over 40 degrees Celsius, which caused the Permian-Triassic extinction, killing
Sounds like a fun time.
over 90% of all species. Earth's surface needed 9 million years to recover. These sorts of eruptions don't change the climate, they are the climate. But thankfully, we haven't seen anything even remotely close to that scale in many millions of years. So, should you be scared of supervolcanoes?
I mean, if they look like that, yes.
Definitely not. They've been used to frighten many people and are overhyped as an unavoidable apocalypse. The most famous one, Yellowstone, will erupt again.
I mean, if they look like that, yes.
Definitely not. They've been used to frighten many people and are overhyped as an unavoidable apocalypse. The most famous one, Yellowstone, will erupt again, but they will be relatively small eruptions. Natural disasters for sure.
Has Physicist never watched 2012 when Yellowstone erupts and just the whole world ends? But I just wanted to say in the stream yesterday, I noted that Physicist, this is kind of a bad take because I've actually been reading stuff recently from volcanologists basically saying that we are dramatically underprepared for future super eruptions. And we're due for quite a few of them. And they were claiming that things could be very, very, very bad if they were to erupt. So I do appreciate, you know, Physicist making things optimistic for everyone. Of course, like who doesn't like that? But we've also got to prepare for bad situations. And I think volcanic eruptions, they do have potential to change the climate dramatically. And sure, they're not going to be as big, but they will do like huge damage. And as he said, volcanoes are the climate. What he means by that is like literally most of the atmosphere on our planet comes from volcanic eruptions. You know, obviously there's stuff like oxygen in the atmosphere, which comes from mostly life on Earth. We thought it was all from life. Not too long ago, we realized there's natural processes now to create oxygen in the atmosphere. Because why is this important? Because we thought if we find oxygen in the atmospheres of exoplanets, that would be, you know, a sign of life. But now we realize there actually is lots we don't understand about this sort of stuff. Like even on Mars, there's some oxygen in the atmosphere, and we've discovered a process which can do this. But it could also be a sign that there was once life. There's so much news coming out about Mars and life as well. It's exciting. We can talk about that.
But not enough to devastate the US or come close to ending humanity. The chance of a VEI-8 eruption in the next few hundred years is less than 2%, and more importantly, it wouldn't come as a sudden surprise. However, less powerful but more frequent
Who made that calculation? That's like very specific.
eruptions can also do serious damage to our civilizations and are in many ways a much greater concern. So we must watch for slow changes in magma reservoirs like ground swelling and temperature increases to get an early warning that can save the lives of people living the closest to a volcano. And there's time to develop solutions that can remove sulfur and ash from the stratosphere to eliminate the root cause of the climate disruption we've seen from previous eruptions. Who knows, maybe we'll even be able to turn this force of destruction into an agent for good by exploiting the geothermal energy held in their giant magma.
This is a great idea. This would be very, very good idea. Why are we not doing this already? I don't know.
Reservoirs. We've done this work for so many other disasters, and we are already doing things we could only have dreamed about decades ago, like sending a probe to perform our first asteroid redirection test. With determination, humanity really can solve anything.
That was the fist of technology, just pushing that. So that just happened, which is like interesting because Kurzgesagt has it in the video, so they probably added it in post, but it's amazing how quickly they can create these animations, no?
So while deep below us an angry hell is churning and
Aussie arm wrestler, I know this guy in real life. What's up, man?
waiting for its moment, you can sleep well tonight.
You can definitely sleep well, but we should definitely still prepare for these things, I think. So that is because, the last thing I wanted to mention about this video actually was I remembered yesterday about this cool thing I read, and then we'll get off the subject of volcanoes because there's lots to talk about. But I recalled this cool thing I read about monitoring volcanoes via their lightning. So you know how volcanoes can literally create like lightning around them? If you've never seen this, this is real. It looks unreal, but it's real. Look, it's already there. Check this out. That is real. That's a real photo. Which is just, it doesn't look real, but it's real. I mean, that looks crazier than Lord of the Rings, or is it just me? Nature has a crazier imagination of it, clearly, obviously. We are part of nature, but we still can't comprehend like what is potentially happening out there in the universe. I just think, look how OP this is in terms of coolness. You got lightning as well as volcanoes. And if you didn't know, lightning is still something of a mystery. We do know a lot about it, you know, but in terms of the fundamental physics behind what's happening in lightning, it's still really mysterious, and it's not talked about enough.